Where's my goddamn lasagna, John? It's time for part 2.
Now, let's move past all the self-important bullshit. Now let's get to a fucking horror flick, you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're going to go there.
1987's Near Dark, directed by Catherine Bigelow. We will. So, I mean, I guess I could take a real quick second to talk about Catherine Bigelow. She known for probably The Hurt Locker and Point Break are probably her two most, celebrated or followed films. She did Zero Dark 30, which was pretty, obviously very well received as well. Detroit, Strange Days. She's did quite a few movies. She's also was, I think, fairly briefly married to James Cameron, who, as you'll see, there is a lot of carryover in this film to the Alien cast as well, which is not surprising. But let's get into that sumbitching cast, because.
So just a quick note about this, though.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised when Gail Ann Hurd, her name didn't come up in the credits, because she was the one who did the production for Terminator and the Aliens, and so that she's the other spouse of James Cameron, which and she was actually married to James Cameron during the production of this film. Gotcha. So that's why I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, it's weird that there wasn't that crossover, but
maybe they weren't quite cool at that point. I don't know.
Perhaps
he was
not.
fucking someone else's, aka he was fucking someone else.
They were well. Yeah, I forget exactly what years the relationships happened, but in any case, you'll recognize a lot of the same cast members.
This is not an episode of Murray. This is an episode of Halloween is Forever.
Not yet. It's not.
Jerry Springer style. Let's go, motherfuckers.
What was that celebrity death match?
Oh my god!
James Cameron's
I thought that was
wives.
supposed to come back. I really want that to come back.
I think it did for a sec, and then everybody was like, "Nah, we don't want it.
This is dumb."
I still want it.
I mean, I liked it when I was 10. But anyway, so take vampires and make them, teenagers in a rural Western small town. That would be the quick synopsis here. You're going to get probably the least well-known person in the cast are the stars of it, which is Adrian Pastar, who plays Caleb, Jenny Wright, who plays May. And then you get into the real stars of the show here, for me at least, which is one Mr. Lance Hendrickson playing Jesse Hooker, Bill Paxton as Severin, who's by far the most iconic imagery of the flick. Obviously the poster, most of the posters around this movie focus on Bill Paxton's character as well. You get Jeanette Goldstein, also from Aliens, as Diamondback. And then you get perhaps the most off-putting character, Joshua John Miller as Homer.
I was literally right now, I'm like, where have I knew I saw him from somewhere else, and he was equally as awkward and weird and gross. And I still where else have I seen him?
So you know that he's a real child in real life in this movie, right?
Yeah, he's not a little person, because he kind of comes off as a little person.
Well, he plays
a
it
bit.
good. That's the thing, is he plays it really well, and he's supposed to be obviously much older, but he was one of these, not terrifically unlike Kirsten Dunst's character in Interview with a Vampire, where she was turned as a child, so she's forever a child. This is kind of what you're experiencing with him, and assumedly he's much older, but he has the mentality and of course the appearance of a child.
Maybe it was the Wonder Years, some of those episodes. He
was definitely he popped up in the 80s and 90s, I feel quite often,
because he just he has this face where you're it just never felt like it changed, even as no matter in this movie and wherever I saw him when I was a kid, I was he's the same face, same awkward, same gross human. He probably was covered in dirt the same way. You know what I mean?
Meg
I hated him. I
hates
hated
kids with lisps. That's what it comes down to. He does have a big old lisp. That's true. But in any case, so this is all about like a coven of vampires who are, again, surviving in, it's like Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, this kind of like
Texarkana type fucking vibe.
type of environment there.
Lots of cowboys.
Yes, I am firmly believe that this movie was the inspiration for all of Rob Zombie's movies, especially the bar
half
scene.
of them.
Yeah, especially the bar scene, which we'll talk about, which is the most iconic scene here. But like I said,
well, even the shootout scene is also that's straight up like Devil's Rejects and House of the Thousand Corpses.
For sure.
True. That's not inaccurate. Yeah. So this kind of ragtag group of vampires who have become this kind of family who have been, thrust together by circumstance type of thing. This movie, I'll say right off the bat, which I appreciate about it, is it moves quickly and it doesn't have too much like plot getting in the way of the story, if you will. Like there's definitely
I love that phrasing because I'm just like, what was the plot? What was the story?
Yeah. So it's a great story. It's a Western. It's a Western vampire horror movie, and it hits all the tropes of a Western vampire horror movie, but
all the tropes of a Western vampire horror movie.
I'm sorry, of a Western, a vampire, a Western and a vampire horror movie. I guess is what I should specify. All those old standby tropes.
All those tropes between this film, John Carpenter's Vampires.
Western Oklahoma vampire horror movie. No, I mean,
you don't know those?
Western,
you don't understand those? Okay.
No, it is a Western, but it is also has all the tropes of a vampire horror movie.
It doesn't feel as strong as a Western though, because there just isn't
Western.
No, I mean, I feel like you take elements of it because you kind of have a lot of this you have like a very strong. What is his name? Caleb? Is that I'm remembering?
Caleb.
Yeah. Like he is very much so. I want to save the day consistently. Also, I'm going to make a sidebar comment about his character right now and just say also that when he first meets May is fucking grossly hilarious, where he's just like, oh, you're really pretty.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. It's like the idea is these vampires, which vampires, traditionally speaking, are typically very like almost worldly, and they're very have this kind of traveled, learned element to them.
But these are scumbags.
But these are scumbag vampires.
Yeah. But I just back to my point is like it not being a strong Western is like you don't feel the law and you don't feel the family as strong. They just seem to come on suddenly. Whereas I don't know.
Maybe Rob Zombie did the thing. Maybe Rob Zombie did the justice for this type of like clan type environment where you felt like they're not going to give up on each other in a way, even though they'll probably still tell each other to fuck off, but they're still all about the clan and like the group mentality.
I really felt like the family was actually the family unit was quite strong. I will admit that like they definitely turn the tides on the way they feel about Caleb pretty quickly, but he does do like an exceedingly heroic thing, I guess, in their eyes.
Yeah.
He runs out. Well, he didn't know that he was gonna potentially explode.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you learn later that if they go out in the sun long enough, it's not just like, ow, it hurts. They explode.
It's full on explosion.
I would like to understand the technical effects.
Don't ruin the movie. Don't ruin the movie, Meg.
No, I want to understand the technical effects of like that smoke. It's just like, do we just put a bunch of smoke bombs in their fucking clothes and they're just like smoking? I kind of. I'm not saying I hated that. I'm just saying I was like very like you saw it over and over again. It wasn't like it was just like one person. It was like out in the sun and just smoking.
And also, blood isn't bright neon red either, like it is in your movie. So,
are you literally coming after George Romero and Tom Savini? Are you coming after Tom Savini?
I'm coming after the fact that it's don't talk to me about realism is what I'm saying.
We're talking about at least a 10-year difference right now. So I'm hoping it
10
fucking looks
years
better.
in the grand scheme of
That's a long
of
time,
cinema?
motherfucker.
in the grand scheme of cinema, we've known what the color of blood is for centuries.
No, but
Millennia,
what I'm
even.
talking about is classic versus modern.
All I'm saying is I take no exception with the practical effects in this movie. I think there are a couple of times where the mythos is inconsistent. Like, for example, there are times where like a stream of light comes through a window and their clothes burst into flames. And you're like, well, wasn't that part of their body covered? You know what I mean? Like, I get it. But that's what I mean when I say, like, they don't bog themselves down with this sort of thing. This is a goddamn
I think that's like the laziest fucking comment I could have ever fucking heard.
No, because you know what? This is not the same type of movie as your movie is almost an art house movie in a lot of ways. It's like a low budget art house movie. And Steve
AKA
just
classic.
flat out said no, because there's plenty of movies that are. I mean, watch Dawn of the Dead. That's not that's a classic.
It came out afterwards. It came out after.
Came out after what?
My movie.
1 year later.
Exactly.
Yours came out 77. Dawn of the Dead. He was working on them simultaneously.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think Megan's trying to use her COVID brain to confuse our COVID brain, because I'm kind of lost in what we're arguing at the moment.
All I'm saying is that
I don't even know what you're coming at me about, so I don't even know what I'm
you came at me.
You came at Brian, and you
motherfucker.
You were questioning the effects in his film, and he made concessions.
I liked it. I kind of enjoyed it. Like, I kind of felt like it was interesting.
I haven't even started.
He made the concession that, like, yeah, they don't always make sense, because, like, why that truck blow up?
So
that
you
don't
got
make no
offended
sense.
by
Don't make no damn sense. I get it. This is a fun. My point is that we have to see it through the correct lens, which is your movie is a very like a passion project art house type of movie. Steve said like his is almost like a proto A24 type of flick in a lot of ways, which I don't disagree with. This is more of a, I don't want to say schlocky, because it actually is kind of grimy, which I love about it. But so this movie, I should provide some context around this as well. So this movie oftentimes gets compared to The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Because they came out like 3 months apart from one another, and The Lost Boys made $30 million or something, and this was like a relative box office flop. But it came out after The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is a very fun, more lighthearted, almost like if you took this movie Near Dark and combine it with the Goonies, you get Lost Boys.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I love Lost Boys. It's great. This movie is more gritty, more mean-spirited, and much more horrifying, certainly, than Lost Boys. But in any case, so it's this coming of age tale. It's this whole idea of Caleb, who he's trying to like separate himself as his own person, his own like adult that can make decisions for himself. He of course makes some self-destructive decisions. And May, who is desperate to connect with somebody. She is already a vampire. Obviously, I won't go through it plot by plot. But
I'm pretty sure like when the Dixie Chicks wrote the song like "Cowboy Take Me Away," this movie was like what it was referring to.
Yeah, they're just called the Chicks now, by the way. So like, don't dead name them right now, because that's what you're doing.
You're gonna get canceled again.
You're about to get canceled fucking hard, Meg. You're dead naming the Dixie Chicks right now. But
you just did it.
Yeah. But this whole idea, I like that it goes really, really fast. Caleb is like at this point in his life where it's like, there's not really anything for me here. I'm going to go. And he very much embraces his life on the road early on, even though, it's really around May, and he doesn't really trust, Jesse and Severin and the rest of the crew. But he ingratiates himself to them pretty quickly, and he starts to feel this, this sense of belonging. And I think even in the very short amount of time that you have with this movie before shit really hits the fan, which is like moments before he spots May for the first time, who's obviously out kind of prowling for bait. So each one of the vampires, they all have their own kind of way of attracting prey when they go out every night to feed. And Maze she uses her feminine wilds, if you will. She's very pretty. She's like, she's very like flirtatious in a way and that sort of stuff. So she's out prowling for prey. And you even get this kind of suggestion at that point that Caleb is kind of, I don't want to say an outsider, but he definitely doesn't feel like he fits in with his like beer drinking jock dickhead buddies who just want to like get drunk and fuck. Like he's kind of trying to have a little bit of he wants a little bit more out of life than his friends, I think is the suggestion. Yeah. And then that's why he takes to, in the first couple of days, the vampire lifestyle a lot more than you would expect somebody to. Yeah.
This movie is such a Nancy Reagan era anti-drug film. This is anti-drug propaganda. And it really
no, I disagree because they paint cops in a very negative way.
They paint cops in a negative way, but it is such a thing about like drugs are so pervasive in the culture at this point. Yes. And the war on drugs is so such 100%. You're such right. A thing up there. And it's even like pretty blatant on the nose in that bus station scene where he's like sweating and having his,
he's got flop sweats and they're treating him like a some sort of degenerate, heroin addict, basically.
Yeah. But the answer to this film though,
but I think it's subversive in the sense that they're basically saying the people who are treating him like this, including the cops, including the bus station attendant, they don't understand what he's gone through. So I take it as, it's very easy. And trust me, you hear it all the time. And I'm sure we've all been guilty of it at times. When you see somebody who is in the throes of addiction, it's very easy for you to point fingers at them and say, well, you've made your bed, now lie in it. But but Caleb remains sympathetic through that. So
Caleb remains sympathetic.
To who though?
Well, and also the bus station attendant and the cop who approaches him at the bus station are very much played as assholes.
Yeah, they're assholes
who are misjudging him because they don't know his plight.
Right.
But he's also a vampire at that point.
Yeah. The end of the film, though, is that the drug addiction is solved by the strong family unit. That's what that's what all anti-drug propaganda was.
I took it as you're not 100% wrong, but I'm saying I took it as it's not that it's solved by the family unit; it's solved by somebody caring about the addict.
I also like that you brought up that whole because I don't think I fully understood it, but I made a comment. I know I have a note about it. Is like I was kind of turned off. Like one of the things that turned me off about this film was that being a vampire could be solved as like a problem. And I kind of hated that.
I it's polarizing. I will 100% agree that it is polarizing that you can unbecome a vampire.
Yeah.
But I do name another movie where that's the case.
Right, but also I don't know if I you can make that comment, but I don't know if I would like that comment because if we're talking about
untraditional vampires, and this is the most non-traditional in the sense that you can literally cure vampirism in this movie.
Sure. I'm just saying I didn't love that aspect of it. Is all I'm saying is that I get what you're saying. I agree that it is a very non-traditional idea because obviously my movie is very non-traditional in that sense, but like. I don't that alone is just like I didn't love it, but I think you guys bringing up this whole but maybe okay, actually I'm gonna take a step back. So I know I'm like babbling right now, but what I love about all of these vampire films is that they're bringing in different aspects of like social commentary. To a certain extent, if we're talking about like looking at vampirism as like, it's just like a drug type of problem that can be solved by like going home and getting treated and stuff like that. Like I understand it and I don't love it, but I understand it. So I'm going to stop there.
Well, and I think the thing is too, it's like, yes, I agree that it's a very heavy handed, drug, almost PSA in a way.
But it plays into all the different things, like I said from the beginning, of like when I was evaluating like what creates vampire films is like we're looking at there's always a comparison to drug addiction is a huge fucking thing.
But
and
I like that this one's
addiction.
empathetic. Like this one takes an empathetic stance.
Sure.
And I can't think of another one. Another one that is so direct in using the drug addiction analogy or the addiction analogy in general. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be anything. But they're using the addiction analogy, which is 100% like a really long-standing trope is like addiction and suppressed sexual identity.
Totally.
Like those are like the two biggest things in vampire history.
Called The Addiction, which I brought up on probably in our last episode, because like it was literally the analogy of one to the other. You know what I mean?
But
so I
like
get
that
it.
This one takes a more empathetic approach, and that's what I think why this movie holds up better than a lot of other ones.
I think it's kind of like this we're trying to make this like almost like family friendly in a way though, because I feel like we want and like even taking the idea of like cowboys type thing, like you want the cowboy to win, you want to root for him.
It's very Americana, purist type of thing.
Yeah, and I think I see that in them using that as like the focal point of like Caleb being a very, we have a family that is like owns a vet and they like are on a farm and blah blah blah. So like and I'm not taking that against it because there were definitely plenty of things that were very fun about this movie. So
I think it's transgressive.
Not hold you up here.
No, I think it's transgressive in the sense that the dad is not a pure good guy. The dad is kind of dismissive. He is he loves his son unconditionally, but he doesn't know what to do. And he's very like close-minded kind of thing. So he kind of but the son makes his own decisions. And he ultimately, yes, he does save him. But I think there's a transgressive element where like, it's almost like like almost a, oh boy, I don't want to use this analogy because we were literally just talking about Lost Boys. And now, but like, Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, where like, they have to fend for themselves a little bit. Sure. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think there's a somewhat transgressive approach to it, and I like the fact that they don't shy away from romanticizing the lifestyle that is so damaging.
Yeah, it kind of plays both ways when they're showing off like Jesse and Diamondback, like they're and Bill Paxton's character, like they're all very, you don't want to like them, and you don't necessarily, at no point do they really ingratiate themselves to the audience.
They're charming and they're charismatic.
Yeah. So like the real life that people are drawn by is like May, and May just happens to have like a fucked up family.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's appealing to like want to run off with the girl that you meet, but then like, her family's all fucked up and crazy. And like the other analogy that you could draw is like the Manson family. Like, you fall into, and like there was another big fear back in the 80s that you fall into like a cult. Yeah. So, and that's kind of
the satanic panic kind of element to it too. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
What I really, and maybe I was not that heroin is a new thing, but like not to get too dark or too real with this, but like, we live in a certainly I don't want to speak for anybody, but I live and have grown up in an area where I have multiple friends who have died from heroin overdoses.
Sure.
And
it's a real fucking thing.
Yeah, and I have friends who have dabbled in it and came out good on the other side, and I have friends who've died from it. But I will say, and maybe this is why this hits hard with me, of the friends and in some instances relatives of mine who have tangled with heroin or opiate addictions, the number of them that I can point to that say this started because of a significant other that already had an issue, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, who had an issue and then they got pulled into that world. It's staggering.
Right. And that's what I think I love about this. Like, I think what I've loved about like diving into this subgenre is I think like there's so much more social commentary to be discussed around like what people are trying to say. And this movie, I think, has a fun way in its own way to like talk about that. Yeah. And I think even like what you're bringing up is on point.
Yeah, and the nice thing about so this movie, it's a good balance. It's kind of unflinching in that way. Does it have corny elements to it? Yeah, but it's played very
80s,
straight.
You know, and I think at the same time, like
except for Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen, which are frankly my favorite parts in the movie.
Right.
They say some pretty, they have some pretty fucking corny lines, especially people think about Bill Paxton is having a lot of the corniest lines, which he does, the sillier lines, finger licking good and all that shit.
Sorry.
But Lance Hendrickson has all the corniest lines.
Yeah.
When he's like talking about like, how old are you? He's like, well, let me put it this way.
Fought
I fought
for the South.
We lost or whatever, shit like that. But I'm like, that's the shit I eat up. I love that stuff. But
why though? I want to know.
I'll move. Why? I just love fucking corny 80s horror. I just love it. But anyway,
you just like corny shit, man.
What's that?
You just like corny shit, man.
I do. I certainly do. Well, so I'm unapologetic about that. I will say the other thing that I think is definitely worth calling out is this movie has in my opinion, one of the best scenes in my opinion, it's one of my favorite scenes in horror history. I'm not saying it's one of the best. I'm not saying it's one of the most it might be one of the more influential ones, but is the barroom scene. In when they go, it's certainly, if somebody says Near Dark, 8 out of 10 people are going to go barroom scene, or they're going to talk about something in that scene. You just see Bill
Paxton. I feel like now that I've seen this, like I just see Bill Paxton's face covered in blood, and because he's so insane throughout it, and honestly, he probably is one of my favorite things about this movie.
Oh yeah, Bill Paxton fucking rules.
Yeah, this whole scene is probably one of the most fun.
Yeah. My favorite part about this scene is, and it's something you think about, like if this movie was remade today, but in the background they have the jukebox and you have that song Fever playing.
Yeah. Oh, such a great choice. It makes the scene.
Yeah, it makes the scene. And what makes it great is the fact that the sound is down. It's just in the background.
It's
so it
ambient.
Gives,
it's just ambient.
It gives you these hints of like, one, it's very late at night, so music is quieter, and then also just like it's in the background, so it's not the focus, and then it punctuates specific parts, especially like when Homer shoots him. Yeah, like it just punctuates with fever. If they remade this today, you would hear nothing but that fucking song.
I know. Well, yeah, it would be so heavy-handed. And I'm like, the whole time I was thinking about this, I took the note down of it as well, is like this, the fact that it's so mellow and quiet is what makes it so eerie.
Right.
That all these people in the room all hear everything. They see everything. They hear everything. They know the score. So if this is like the antithesis of like the scene in Blade where they're all in the club and you know what I mean? Like, and the music's pounding.
But that scene also rules.
That scene also rules, but it's just like, it's so not subtle. And this is the antithesis in that it's like,
don't talk shit about Blade.
So subtle. I love Blade. Don't get me wrong. But Blade is a fucking graphic novel brought to life. This is a grimy, type of. Anyway, but just some of the lines, man. It's like, little trouble with your hog leg there, and then he cuts him with his spur. You don't expect it. You think he's gonna do something over the top, and then he slices the bartender's neck with his spur. Like,
oh my god, the death by spur. Oh my god.
Yeah,
color me a fucking cowgirl.
Yeah, Jesus. I love that scene. But
man.
And then when May dances with the kid who at that point basically knows he's going to die, which he doesn't die, he survives, but it's because Caleb lets him go twice, basically. And then you get the shootout scene, which, despite the fact that logically it's so flawed, it's such a cool scene. You get a goddamn van slamming through a car, or slamming through a little bungalow or whatever the hell it is, and then slamming through the other side, and a fucking getaway, and Bill Paxton's all hyped up. It's just like, it's so fun.
What a hilarious way to rent a room. Just like, I'm here for one of your bungalows.
Well, then he's like looking at the clock, and he's all figured out. And I love that line where he's like, I'm going to butcher it, but he's like, haven't I seen you before? Like a long time ago? He goes, yeah, I make it through this place about once every 50 years. Make another reservation for me or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I almost felt like it could have, I mean, granted, I don't want to like make up scenarios for movies, even though I do that oftentimes, and you guys know that. But I feel like it would have been cool if this was like
Meg
the bar where
writes her own fan fiction for every movie we talk about in her mind.
It's always fan fiction here. I just would I think it would have been interesting if it was like the bar that they like always like came to, you know, at the same time, and then like the bartender was in on the whole fucking thing, and he just always like brought new people in and just like got them killed, you know what I mean? Like,
if the bartender was in on it, that would be cool. I think
know what that's called, Meg? That's called From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah. If you've never seen it, that's literally the movie. But this is the cool thing about this one, though, is like, okay, so this is set in the, in the 80s, when it's like in the middle of bumfuck Oklahoma. Like, jurisdictions probably didn't talk to each other, so there would be like some explosion at a bar that killed people, and then there was also a Winnebago that got torched up the road, and those things are 100 miles away from each other, and the cops never talk to each other.
Right.
Just go, it's another bullshit thing in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Until they see some sort of theme, they're not going to fucking do anything about it.
Yeah. So, you hear these like true crime stories of like how long it took, rural, police forces to talk to each other and identify a serial killer. And it was like years, you know what I mean? So
especially these traveling killers that like, if like they're a truck driver, they can just drive across
Henry
country.
Lee Lucas or whatever. And Otis
they're a little bit more,
whatever.
They're a little bit more dumb than this movie.
They're more dumb.
Those were literally two of the most low IQ fucking morons in the world. And they killed probably 50 fucking people, you know what I mean?
Great art, though, they were artists at the heart of it.
Meg separates the artist from the art.
Oh man, more than anybody I've ever met in my whole life.
Man, I am painting myself so poorly on this episode.
Meg's getting me dude so hard.
Meg might as well just sign off with, I'm going to go watch some Bill Cosby now. Bye.
I'm going to go paint Bill Cosby and sell it. Here is the so anyway, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but there's the scene at the end. You get a cool action showdown scene at the end. The scene with how Caleb dispatches of Severin when he rips through the hood of the truck and pulls out the fucking brake lines, and then he pulls back to the what he learned from the truck driver they killed earlier about how to jackknife the fuel truck and explodes is awesome. And then the showdown with Jesse, and he gets a knife thrown in his throat and stuff. It's just it's just sick. It's just fucking cool 80s fucking wild ass horror shit, but it's all like acted well. I mean, even some of the lines, like I said, that Lance Hendrickson delivers that are kind of corny, they're like, he's bought the fuck in. And that's why I love him. That's like one of the reasons why I love him as an actor. It's like he sends it no matter fucking what. Ultimately, Caleb gets kind of he gets cured. Basically, his dad, who's a vet, gives him a blood transfusion that cures him of vampirism, which again makes no goddamn sense, but it is absolutely a left turn. I remember the first time I watched this movie, because many people might know the same plight. This movie was fucking hard to find for a while. like really hard to find.
You're telling me.
You couldn't find, like, it was streaming on Shudder recently, and
Yeah.
I have it on VHS. But if you go and try to buy a copy of this right now, you're going to spend $50-$60 to find a physical
Is
copy
that
of
one
this
of your
movie.
like plot point? Is that one of your points for like why this movie is so good?
No, it's just that this movie was really hard to, it really was truly hard to find for a while. And I think
Still
that's
was.
actually, and it still is, oddly enough, it was streaming on Shudder for quite a while, and then it coincidentally went off right around the time that I picked it, I think. But I do think that is one of the reasons why it has like lasted the test of time and is now finding like an entirely new audience now, is because it was for a lot of people this like movie they couldn't get their hands on.
Can we somehow get like royalties for bringing it back to the surface as well on our podcast?
It's fully there because even when, like on the Instagram, when I've like posted about it before, if you say anything about Near Dark, it's immediately like 4 times the likes of anything else because it's just like people fucking love this movie and they love Bill Paxton specifically in this movie. But there's just so many good lines. I'm a sucker for a shitty, fucking corny line, but like, first you're gonna give me back my spur, then I'm gonna knock your tonsils through your asshole. Just shit like that. I love those lines.
There's one thing. There's one thing about Bill Paxton's performance, and I don't know if it's something they asked him to change or something, but like in the very first kind of scene that he's meeting with Caleb and he's like standing on his neck, he's doing this weird affectation of like almost a monster voice.
In the van?
Yeah, in the van.
Or in the Winnebago?
Yeah, in the Winnebago.
Yeah. When he's talking about he's going to rip his face off.
Yeah. And it just it just sounds really dumb and bad. But then the rest of the film, he has kind of the more charismatic normal. There's just something about that first scene where he's just like making dumb monsters.
It as like he is. So Bill Paxton is a vampire who you never really get into how old he is, but you assume he's a vampire. He's got to be quite old. And Lance Hendrickson's definitely the oldest one, who he was from, Civil War era, which means he's not that old. What I mean? In the grand scheme of vampires, these are all babies, basically.
Yeah.
But Bill Paxton specifically is a goddamn moron. I think the whole idea is he's a white trash moron who ended up being extremely powerful as a I think
it's just because of his behavior. It's
Yeah.
almost like his behavior then becoming a vampire was like even like intensified all of that, because it's kind of like, not to bring it back to like zombies, but like that aggression or that id type fucking mentality. I think sometimes with vampires, I think we kind of see that like id come to the forefront where it's like anything you want to exist exists.
Yeah.
But I also want to add something. The only scene that I was just like, this is completely pointless, and I was kind of mad about it, and I had to rewind it to rewatch and get mad over it like 2 times, was like like right after Caleb got taken, and then we came back to, we clearly see his dad trying to figure out where the fuck he is, and like they have the cop out on the road, and they're like, look at those tracks, blah blah blah, and like he was talking about how at this rate they're probably going X amount of miles per hour and they're probably in clear next state, and then it just cuts, and I'm like, it felt so pointless. It could have,
that was
it could
the
have been
idea.
done. No, but it could have been done better to make it effective, that his dad would have actually been looking for him. I think that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
versus like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, so, okay, the reason why the Terminator works is because there's always this constant feeling of pursuit and anxiety from that.
Sure.
And I feel like this film lacks that sense of pursuit, because I already mentioned it before about how, like, it doesn't feel like the law is super involved. And
no, they're not.
Right. So, like, because we get these real early scenes of the father, like, wanting to look, and then, like, I think he has another scene where he's looking, and then he just happens to turn up at the same kind of hotel spot.
He knew the geographic location he was in, and then it was a coincidence that they were at the same hotel.
Right. And it's just coincidence. So
yes.
it feels like, I don't know, I just feel like this film would have like a better driving energy if there was a more pursuit nature to it, rather than, you know, because it would be like a reverse pursuit. Like I'm saying, the Terminator is like the anxiety of, you know, the machine trying to kill you, whereas like if there was a reverse anxiety almost of the father just missing his son.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was obviously it was very much the B storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because the whole idea is it's Caleb deciding what he wants his life to be.
Right.
And so like May really romanticizes the vampire lifestyle, where she's clearly unsure, but she is doing her best because of maybe what she learned from like Jesse and Diamondback and Severin, the rest of them. She is romanticizing the lifestyle in that she going like, well, what are we going to do? Whatever we want, listen to the night, let it speak to you, all this stuff. So she is romanticizing the lifestyle, and she's trying to sell Caleb on it, not because she necessarily believes it 100%, but because she wants to she's set hard selling him on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, she wants somebody of her own
age. She wants to keep her
Companion.
pussy wet, guys.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
she
just, like,
wants it. She wants a companion. So I think the idea is, if the father, I think it would have sucked. I would not want the father to be a bigger force. He ends up being, frankly, he's not a character that I was really that drawn to. And I think the fact that he haphazardly stumbles upon them makes it inciting
but here's the thing
incident.
is, like, I think it's just a weak point to the movie. I think that's literally what it is. I think that, like, the idea that, like, you're right in that. I think ultimately this movie is a lot about his personal internal strife to, like, does he want to give into this vampire lifestyle, or does he want to go back home? But I feel like his biggest draw to go back home is that he cares so much about his family. That clearly was the tick for him. That was literally it. He was
his
almost
sister
about,
specifically, yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, he was almost about to give in. Like, especially you saw that after the bar scene where he was going.
Done. I mean, he was said
ready.
Like, I belong here now. These are I'm with them now. He even says to his dad.
But then, so that's why I'm saying it's like, it feels like such a weak point to the movie that, like, his dad or the chase to get him back isn't a stronger point to this film, that, like, you're just like, oh, okay. So he just kind of was like, oh, I saw my sister and I saw her being threatened. So now that makes more sense to me.
Well,
I'm going back to my humanistic aspect of it. You know what I mean?
I think he comes to the
I feel like you guys get what I'm saying with it. It's just a weak point to it.
Yeah.
I think
it's his point. Like, so you guys were talking about how this is like, okay, this is a drug PSA and all this type of thing. If his dad would have came and tough loved his ass out of being a vampire, then it would have been worse.
I'm not saying that I want scenes of the dad trying to tough love him out of it. I'm just saying I want scenes of, like, the dad showing up just barely missing his son. You still have
they did when he calls him, like, and when Caleb finally decides I need to call home and let him know what's going on, he's not home. He's out.
Right.
That was Caleb going back, and that was showing Caleb's internal strife. Is like where
his dad
it's like
was looking for him.
No, he was, and that's what I'm saying. It's just a weak point to the movie. Is like all I'm adding to it is like overall, there's a lot of fun elements to this movie, but like overall to the storyline and getting us back to the plot point of like Caleb coming to the realization that like his family matters more than this new family. I think it's just a weak point that it didn't make the They did not do a good job. They did not do a good job actually developing his relationship with his father and why it's so important to him.
Well, because it's not that important to him. And he didn't do that. He didn't make the decision to go back to his parents. He didn't go to the vampires and say, guys, I miss my family. I think I'm going to go home.
No, it came down to that point when they were in the hotel room, and he was like, I want to protect my family over being here. Is something like flipped in his brain.
Well, he realized that they don't care about him.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you're literally feeding all the points. What I'm saying is that like all of these things is all about family, but like it was a weak point that ultimately we don't have a well-established relationship with Caleb to his family to make this all seem stronger, and that it's just a weak
he
point.
Didn't care.
And that's what I'm saying. It's just a weak point. But at the same time, it has to be a stronger point because May decided to do the same thing. So like it wasn't like
you don't
he
know
just
anything
let
about
her
May.
go. No, we do know she fucking did the same thing that he did. She got the transfusion. Like that's what
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But she was connected to him. So I think what I'm saying is I disagree that it's a weak point. I think it's actually a benefit. Like I can't think of a way that it would have worked out that would have been stronger because he makes the decision. He doesn't have that much of a connection with his family. He
neither way though. That's what I'm saying.
He kind of doesn't care about his dad, and that's what made him be a seeker in the first place. The reason that he's interested in the vampire lifestyle is because he didn't have a choice
there. That was the thing. Is like what you're saying is doesn't make sense because he didn't have a choice in becoming a vampire because May didn't give him a choice. May turned him into a vampire. May turned him into he's psyched about getting his dick wet, dude. Like,
No.
That's what he's psyched about.
Risks his life for all the other vampires.
Right.
After he became a vampire.
And then he all of a sudden, yes, that choice was made for him. But my point is like he was psyched about the whole idea of getting away from his family and seeing what the world has in store for him.
Not until he was literally taken from the farm and like he was literally stolen and put onto this, and then he
but
had
I'm
to be
saying
convinced.
Earlier in the movie, when he's talking to his friends, even before he meets May, like moments before he meets May,
sure,
they set up that he is like restless in his life.
Sure, no, totally. I think that's a fair point.
So I think the idea is like he goes out, he meets these people. Yes, he's forced into this situation, but then he takes to it like a fucking fish to water. Right. And all of a sudden now he is on board. I'm a fucking vampire.
Exactly.
And then when his parents or when his family comes, he still says, "Dad, I'm with them now."
Until they threaten them, and then he
goes,
up.
"Oh, shit! They don't actually care about him."
That's why I'm saying it's all a weak point. It's just a weak point.
How's that weak?
Because it doesn't establish the strength to return to his original family.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Like, why would them threatening his original family make him want to go back with his original family rather
because
than
they're gonna kill a child?
But he's a vampire.
Right.
But
in theory,
sister.
he doesn't really care.
Because here's the thing.
Instinctually, he doesn't
he's
care.
He's not getting from his family. He's not getting from his family what he wants. His real family.
Right.
His dad, he's not getting what he wants. So he thinks that he's getting a real sense of family from these vampires. He saves them. Then he is sitting, and it's the turning point in the movie. He says it like 3 times. Whenever Homer is trying to take his sister, he goes, "No, that's my sister, man. You can't do that." And Homer goes, "Fuck you, I don't care." And then he goes, "No, you don't get it. This is a thing that families do for each other. If I say to you, Homer, no, you can't do this because doesn't jive with me. If you were really my family, my new family, you would understand
that.
No,
I totally, I think
and he says, "No, fuck you." And he goes,
points.
"Oh, wait a second. These people aren't the family I thought they were."
Exactly. So like, that's what I'm like. I think you're hitting all the points of saying is that like, at the end of the day, everything you're saying makes sense. Is all I'm saying. All I'm saying is that with this movie is that they do not set up or establish a really good reasoning why. Like he basically, if we're talking about even coming of age type films in general, like that was his moment when he realized that they don't establish that before then. And that's why I'm saying, so if I'm just finalizing me defending it's a weak point to the film, I have nothing else to say besides they don't establish in this film that he has a strong connection to his family. He doesn't realize he has a strong connection to his family until his family is threatened. That is the only thing that I'm saying.
I'm still missing why it's weak. I'm still not hearing why it's weak.
Well, why? So why does he not want his sister to become a vampire?
Right. Like
because his sister's an innocent child.
But like he also was an innocent child in a way.
No, he's not. He's like an 18-year-old grown-ass man.
But he had no choice in that. And so she could become what he is and still live in their family.
They could all be a big vampire family.
They could all be a big vampire family. And that's what I'm saying.
I think he's like, I'm dealing with the cards that I'm dealt, and now I'm creating a family. That doesn't mean you want your 8-year-old sister to be a vampire.
But he's not being harmed in this situation, though. Like
but she's about to be.
But how? He's not trying to kill her. He's trying to make her what he is. But so we don't have this like understanding.
I mean, imagine what it's like to be 18 years old. You think you're a grown up. You think you got it all figured out. This is a coming of age tale. He's obviously doesn't want that same thing for his 8-year-old sister. That's like very easy. There's no leap in judgment there.
He knows that she isn't going to be hurt. All she has to do is just be a vampire and just like drink blood. Like, you know what I mean? So
but he had such a huge problem with that.
He did. And so he's all, and that's
what I'm
saying.
That for his sister.
But why do we care? Why do we care?
Why do you care
Ryan,
if your sister gets turned into a vampire?
Care? All I'm saying is why in this movie, in this context, in this story, why the fuck do we care?
About what? About his sister getting turned into a vampire?
Exactly, yes.
She's 8 years old. You don't want 8-year-olds to get turned into a vampire.
But the movie does not establish why we should care.
Common sense.
Ryan!
Common sense. No. This is a terrible point.
I'm arguing
with you to the death on this because what you're saying this is not a weak point in the movie. There's plenty of weak points in the movie.
I love
There's plenty of weak points in the movie. This is not a weak point. Nobody has explained to me at all why this is a weak point.
And to me, it was a very straightforward. It's such a straightforward weak point.
There's absolutely no good explanation that has been provided to me by why this is a bad point in the movie. This is the emotional climax of the movie.
Should I keep arguing with him?
No, we should move on.
Okay.
You guys have not done. You've both done a bad job. There's no emotional climax. Right. Like there's no reason why this isn't a valid emotional climax.
All right,
he had two options. He could stay a vampire or go back to his family. The vampires just told him, "Fuck you, I don't care about you." His dad clearly cares about him because he came looking for him. He came looking for him.
But we have no other established besides him looking for him that he actually gave a fuck for him.
He came to look for him.
But May turned him into a vampire. May wanted him to be a vampire. Why is that not a stronger argument?
He loves May. He's still into May. He proves it later.
So why does he not just want to stay a vampire?
Because the other vampires are bad news. This is so easy. This is so easy.
Okay, Brian, we're not going to go in circles anymore because I think you and I are standing on two different hills.
Yeah, but here's my hill and here's your hill.
Okay, yeah.
This doesn't make any
no
goddamn
one can
sense
see
what you're
that,
arguing.
But Brian thinks that his hill is higher than mine.
It is. You've made no sense. I don't understand.
Okay, let's let the audience make the decision if me calling this out as being a weak point in this film.
It's just, I guess what I'm saying is there's
point.
so many weak points.
Evidently weak point.
No, there isn't.
Let's fucking move on.
You've literally not explained to me why it is.
Okay, tell me why also this movie is a terrible movie.
Steve, yes. Yes, there's tons of reasons why this shit doesn't add up.
No, this movie actually wasn't a bad movie. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's fantastic.
I was simply calling out one weak point, and you were like, "No, this is not the weak point of the movie."
But you could have told a bunch of other.
Tell me where
the best part of the movie.
No, it's not though. I feel like that's like a very strong weak point. Anywho, tell me why this is either a good or bad movie. Keep going. I'm listening.
That's it. I think it's fun. I think it's not too self-serious, but I think there's some real stakes involved. I think there's some good violence. I think there's some intriguing characters. I'm not super big fan of May, the performance, frankly. Mm-hmm. If there was one performance that I thought was like kind of weak, it would probably be May, because they make her out to be more of like this like like not ineffectual, but a vampire who has been she's clearly the baby of the group, right? It's kind of established that she's been there the least amount of time. So she's the least mature from a vampire perspective, but she's wily and tactful and knows how to pull people into her web.
Do you think it's like just because of her character, or do you think it's just the actor that was playing her? Because I think it's more of the actor.
I agree. And I think it's more of the actor. I think
because I liked her idea, the idea of her in general. It makes sense, and I think she
the pretty
the
young girl who's playing vulnerable and all that stuff. I just wish I would have saw that more. And then when it comes to the actual interactions with her, she almost validates that is actually what she's like, which it's fine. They're portraying vampires as these very, very flawed, vulnerable characters, as opposed to a, Interview with a Vampire type of thing where they're like extremely worldly and operate on a different level than the rest of society.
I think a lot of what falls apart is the fact that there are so many characters, and you get. Obviously it's in the marketing because Bill Paxton's so upfront and everything. Bill Paxton delivers such a better performance at what his character is, but his character really doesn't have any he's a henchman.
Yeah.
But
he's a mini boss.
Yeah, they turn the henchman into like the star because the May's character has such dog shit agency against the vampires. Like she has all these fun tips and tricks, and she would be the guide for Caleb, into accepting his vampirism. But like after she's done kind of guiding him, she doesn't have much else.
No, I agree with that, and I also agree that Bill Paxton and Lance Hendrickson's characters could have been the same character. And probably should have been the same character.
I also think she falls apart, and just want to add is like, and not to get, I mean, I don't know, I'm assuming we're getting close to the end of this, but like, is like when she eventually gets the transfusion and becomes human, is like, there's that moment where they're just hugging at the end of it, and that feels so, like, I want more out of it. That like I don't even know exactly what I want out of
part
it.
Of the movie.
Yeah.
And I frankly was blown away that you guys didn't bring that up earlier. And we were arguing about the fucking best emotional part of the movie and not talking about the dog shit ending. Like,
no,
not
it
dog
is.
shit, but
it's
like
pretty, it is weak.
We're there
too.
now.
Yeah.
It's not dog shit, but
Your
it's
shit's
like
weak.
It's not. It doesn't jive with the rest of the movie, where like this is a fairly cutthroat movie, like, and you expect it to end in it is a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a movie that's kind of like bleak.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to, you can't help but compare it to Lost Boys.
Yeah.
It's a bleak version of Lost Boys, but then it has this incredibly wrapped up in a nice little bow, kind of shallow ending.
Yeah. You have to wonder.
Which I wish it was more bleak.
Yeah, you have to wonder if maybe that was like just rewritten. Maybe there was an ending that didn't play well, because you would think. So, like, I can justify the transfusion between like the father and the son. That makes sense, and maybe you can bring some sort of coherence to like, the father's blood. Bringing the son back. But then why was it working with May, who has no...
Well, this is what I would have liked to have seen. And it ends so abruptly, literally on a freeze frame halfway through a hug. So my thought was like, what if... It would have been better if May came back and they're like, oh, you're back, you're good,
but she
you
wasn't.
Can stand in the sun. But then she fucking died because she got a blood infection, or the blood transfusion didn't take, and then she died.
Or she like actually wasn't turned. I mean, granted, you definitely hear that she was, because she's like, I feel so warm, blah blah blah. But like, I almost wanted it to be like, I wanted her to like bite him again and be like, no, this is not the right path for us, and let's like fucking go back.
I wish it would have had a bleaker ending. It would have jived more with the rest of the tone of the film a little bit, but anyway.
No, they had to do the schmaltzy anti-drug PSA ending.
I know, the schmaltziness I did not like. The only thing I don't like about this movie...
They make us all want to go back to drugs.
It reminds me of what's the fucking Argentinian film that I watched or that we talked about that was really good, but then there was a really shitty
with the ghosts.
No,
with the ghosts.
No, the one where they were in like a different. Yeah, there was ghosts and they were in like the little neighborhood that was haunted, but then it had a really shitty ending where the chair flew through towards the screen.
Yeah,
the Terrifier. Like it was one of those things where I'm like, God damn, this would be one of my favorite movies.
Terrified
if not for this.
I think.
Terrifier. Oh,
okay.
Terrifier is Art the Clown or whatever his name is. Yeah. Anyway, yes, this movie, really the only like fault that I can find with it, I really love this movie otherwise, is the ending. So it is what it is, guys. All right, listen. You guys are ungrateful bastards. You want your self-important art house bullshit.
Yes.
Steve, tell us how we're voting here.
We're gonna vote Brian first, Meg second, and then I'll vote last.
Okay. I am going to say there I think it's difficult because I think Martin is underrated, and I think underrated but not amazing, and I think Let the Right One In is overrated but still really good. You know what I mean? Like one's not getting enough credit but doesn't deserve all the credit in the world, and one is getting too much credit but does deserve a lot of credit. So I do think I need to go with Let the Right One In. I think it's better acted. I think it is minimalistic, but in a more intriguing way. And honestly, the thing that puts it over the edge for me is the strength of the main actor's performance, because both of the kids are so good. And I really like the premise for Martin. And I think it's well directed and the story's well told, but I really kind of don't like the main guy that much.
Yeah.
I don't like his performance very much. So that's what's going to put it over the top for me.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
Meg.
All right.
Fart noises is not a vote.
Nope. Fart noises are not a vote.
Unless you want to forfeit and then I win.
No. So clearly I obviously chose my movie as being the best. But if I'm choosing between the two, I felt like Let the Right One In had a lot more like traditional tropes to the vampire like genre. And if we're going with non-traditional things, as much as like I felt like Near Dark was like weaker in certain aspects, I still felt like it was stronger when it came to non-traditional vampires. And Bill Paxton, I think, it was a more fun movie for me that I would probably rewatch. So I guess I'll go with Near Dark as like my number 2.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on traditional versus non-traditional? Because they both can't go out in the sun. They both have to drink blood.
Steve's seeing how this is about to play out.
I think like I felt like Let the Right One In like stuck to a lot of like very traditional things, and it didn't have to do with like necessarily like traditional like in that Victorian sense. It had to do with that like it was what I expected, and I felt like Near Dark was just more fun in the idea of like what you could do with a vampire film and like how chaotic that like non-traditional vampire films could take the genre. And that's why I would choose that one a little bit more over Let the Right One In.
Because they had a gunfight and a truck explode.
Ooh, truck explodosaurus.
And I think it's just like the whole the familial idea, and like and even the bar scene might have been one of the turning points for me when it came to that being like it just was more fun in this non-traditional sense that like both had the similar tropes of like what vampires are, but it more so was like Let the Right One In was what I expected it to be, and Near Dark was like let's get weird and a little bit chaotic with it. And that's what I think expect a little bit more out of like non-traditional vampire films.
Okay. So for myself, I don't have two great ones to pick from. I like Martin as a character study, and it makes a lot of sense in that sense. And if we're going to do a character study, then we stick with a character. My problem with Near Dark is that it feels muddy in a lot of ways, and you can't have third build, or you can't have the third in line character and then the fourth in line characters be the stars when you're supposed to be focusing on the cowboy boy. And then like
wait, he's still the
a star, but he's flat most of the time, and he doesn't really actually have a character. Like he's just you can argue that he's supposed to be like an everyman that any teenager can imprint on.
Yeah, exactly.
You can argue that, but that's a shitty weak character, because like there's not he's not interesting. Like I don't find
he's not. The world is interesting.
Yeah, like I didn't find him interesting. I don't find her interesting. Like she serves her purpose as a guide, but then after that and you just there's too many characters. And there's also, if it was more like The Devil's Rejects, where you were constantly seeing the cops and the father in a pursuant fashion, I think that would make it more, it would make it more interesting and give you more of a ticking clock. Right now, the only real ticking clock in the script for Near Dark is just the fact that they have to feed, and that's just kind of a constant with all vampire films though. So I'm actually going to go with Martin, because there's fun things in Near Dark, but it feels incomplete and unfocused.
You're going to sit here. You're going to look me in the face.
Yeah, I am. There's so many better Bill Paxton and Lance Hendricks films.
All right. So what you're saying is, this is going to the listener.
It's going to the listener.
All right. And you know that makes me win, right?
It might.
I don't know.
It might.
It might.
All right.
I'm gonna start canvassing hot topics, and I guarantee if I get the hot topic crowd, it's my.
I'm gonna go for the Pittsburgh crowd. Come on, guys.
That's the other thing. We have a lot of Pittsburgh listeners. They might just go. They just might do homerisms.
This is believe it or not, the first time that this has happened, where we are at a proverbial Mexican standoff, where what we're going to need to do is take it to the social medias. So we have a 3-way tie, guys. So you, the listener, gets to decide what is the best non-traditional vampire flick: Near Dark, Martin, or Let the Right One In. So we will determine, and I will be watching those votes like a fucking hawk.
Let's go,
ready to take that
Homers,
belt.
where I'm at.
The second the Instagram poll, times out, Meg, expect just a horse kick on your door. Wait for me.
Why are you coming at me?
For me to
why are you not going after
Steve? I want that little tiny belt.
You're so mad. You're so mad at me.
You're the one who got the little tiny belt.
You're the one holding the belts. That's why your door's getting kicked in.
I want the little tiny belt. All right. So this will be a first. This will be a first for the Halloween is Forever crew. The listeners are going to determine who the champ is, and also who is going to be able to pick that punishment film, which this was a hard fought battle. So I'm starting to think that maybe whoever gets to choose that punishment film is going to be out for blood. And
it should be. It has to be.
I've already promised Life Force.
I've had a couple. Oh, you have
promised Life Force. Vote for me for Life Force.
So now Steve's like on a completely separate.
It's a bonus. It's a bonus reason.
He's basically the guy who's running for class president that says everyone gets Twinkies if I win.
Yeah, except for I'll deliver. We'll just watch Life Force. It's on Tubi. It's very easy to promise to deliver on. Campaign.
Yeah. Life Force is a good one. So, all right, you sons of bitches. Meg's got to get up in 3 hours, so let's wrap this son of a bitch up, guys. If you haven't already, check us out on the social medias because you got to help us vote to figure this fucking thing out because, guys, a lot's riding on this. All types of little plastic belts are riding on this. So, all right. That said, tune in next time to hear who wins. So this is a real to be continued situation.
Movie.
Oh, God.
Continued. That's a fucking t-shirt. To be continued, guys. Tune in next time.
Continued on the back.
To be continued for next time to see who wins and also figure out what that fucking
oh my God.
punishment
3 hours.
episode is going to be.
3.5 hours to not have a winner.
We're here to disappoint.
This is a good argument though. This is good.
All right, so I am gonna go watch Life Force right now, just to prepare. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon. We'll hear who won on the next episode, and for the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm your future champ, Meg.
I am still champ forever and always, Steve.
Near dark, guys, near dark. Vote for it. It's coming. All right,
vote the right one in.
See you around. Bye. Shut the fuck up.